Now, do you ever start anything with good intention, but as things progress, you lose your motivation and you just become plain and simply bored, or you can't be bothered and fancy a change? Now, that's what happened to me this morning. I went to the gym with good intentions, started my run as I normally do, but as things progressed, I actually found it quite hard, and physically I was getting hot, bothered and flustered, etc. And I thought, something's not right. I need to give up here. Anyway, the fire alarm went off and everyone within the gym had to evacuate via the fire escape. And whilst I was in that moment of walking outside to safety, my mind was saying, what you're doing is just uncomfortable. Avoid it, stay away. Okay? That's really, really conflicting because I'd gone with good intentions. However, 60% of me was really quite negative, and 40% was motivated. Well, that reaction that I was feeling at the time reminded me that fitness, health and self-improvement are part of my identity and should not be ignored. So before re-entering the building, after we all received the all clear, I made a conscious decision to stay aligned with the new me rather than fall back into old patterns. Even though I did not achieve visible physical gains today, mentally the session was a major success because I overcame the urge to give up. The negative thoughts I had may have been louder, but the positive mindset ultimately won. That decision reinforced the person who I am becoming, someone who understands that growth is not just about results, but it's about continuing despite resistance.
Okay, so let's break that down into what was going on internally. Now, this was a clear example of how your brain systems interact with effort, identity and decision making whilst under stress. Now, I'd started my gym session motivated, but as the running became physically demanding, my brain's predictive processing system began rapidly forecasting discomfort and potential failure based on the immediate physical pain. This then fed into the default mode network, which generated self-referential thoughts about quitting and returning to old patterns. When the fire alarm triggered and an evacuation, my reticular activating system, or RAS, and selective perception mechanisms intensified the focus on escape cues and reinforced internal narratives suggesting leaving would be easier. But despite this, there was an internal conflict between the old conditioned response and my emerging identity. So around 60% of my mental processing was influenced by short-term relief-seeking and dopamine-driven avoidance, while the other 40% was guided by a more deliberate identity-based choice aligned with my long-term goals. By consciously staying aligned with the new me, I disrupted the automatic loop between discomfort, prediction and avoidance. Even though the session felt negative in the moment, I strengthened neuroplasticity by reinforcing a new behavioural pattern, tolerating discomfort without quitting. When doing so, I trained my brain to update its predictions, slightly recalibrating dopamine expectations around effort and strengthening a more resilient identity pathway for future situations. Now, there was a lot there to unpack for something that is so relatively simple and part of our everyday processes or experiences. But if it's something that you can identify with, I'd be happy to interpret your events so you can understand your thoughts in more detail too. Feel free to share them below or via a private message.